Hey guys, welcome back. Really excited about the guest that I have today. Matt Larson is a real estate investor, entrepreneur, pretty much does a little bit of everything. And I'm very impressed by it because I understand that it is not easy to operate multiple businesses at once. And it seems like he's doing pretty darn well. He's been in the business for a long time. And I wanted to get him on here because I think when you see someone that's been in business for a long time and consistently successful, that says something because a lot of people are in and out of business and, everybody looks great in the beginning, but if you can stick around and do something for a long period of time, you probably are doing well at it. So Matt, thank you for doing this. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Excited to get into this conversation.
Yeah, excited to be here. Want to share and help any way I can.
So you got into real estate for a different reason than some, and your story is pretty interesting. Maybe you could kind of touch on why you got into real estate in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, so I got out of high school and, I was not a college, type guy. I went to college for one semester. And after that semester, they told me I couldn't come back. So that was the end of my college career. And I came back home and my dad said, you got to do something. And so, at 19 years old, I went to work in a machine shop in local town where I live, which is only like an hour and a half from here right now. So I grew up pretty close to where I live right now. And did machine shop work for all the way from 19 through in my 30s or early 30s. I ended up, so it's kind of funny. I think you're probably referring to the girlfriend story.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
exactly what I'm referring to. Yeah.
so. At 26 years old, I was working in a machine shop. I started dating this girl, and she was way out of my league. She was like a doctor, and here I am coming home every day, just covered head to toe in dirt and grease. And we dated for about 4 years. She was pretty wealthy. I was dirt poor, and so we dated for about 4 years. And one day she came up to me, and we got together, and she was just like, "Hey, I want to break up." And I was like, "Why?" And she just said, "Because I want to date somebody with status, somebody that makes money." And I'd never really thought about making money at that point. I never put a lot of emphasis on money. I always made enough money to just basically pay my bills. I was living in a 300 square foot apartment, paying $275 for rent at this time, which, at 30 years old is not a great accomplishment. And maybe she saw where I was heading, and maybe it was fine when I was 26, but at 30, maybe that was too much. I don't know,
Your
but it just,
trajectory was not very strong. Yeah.
no, most people were owning houses by the time they're 30. So, and I had never owned a house. So, it really hit me hard. I really didn't know how to handle it. And I was heartbroken. And all of a sudden now my whole world changed from, doing my hobbies at night after work to, I got to figure out how to make money. And I didn't know how to make money. I'd never even heard of personal development section in a library, never been in a bookstore. And so I really don't know what to do. I don't know anybody that makes money. And so I was up late one night and I saw an infomercial come on TV. It was back when I used to, my apartment was so little, it was a studio apartment. And basically the bedroom and the TV room were the same room. It was like 5 feet away.
Studio.
So
Yeah.
I used to just leave my TV on all night for noise. And I wake up in the middle of the night, stressed out, trying to figure out how to make money. I don't know anybody that's rich. And so, and this is before social media, like everybody has it kind of made now, because if you're on social media, you can't miss this stuff. But in 2005, Facebook wasn't a thing. And so, I saw this infomercial and talked about, flipping houses and zero money down. And I'm like, this is my deal right here. So I ended up buying the book and, getting started. And, one quality that I had, even though I grew up poor and had poor parents and my parents didn't know how to make money either, I always was a hard worker. And so, and I did what I was told. I was one of those people that was always like, if you tell me to do something, I'm going to go do it. If a coach tells me to go do something, I will do it. I won't ask questions. I'll just get the work done. And so I did a deal in my first 30 days, and which was amazing to go from somebody that grew up, with their dad telling them, don't ever buy a house, always rent, because if something breaks, you don't have to pay for it. My parents were renters their whole life. And so, I get my first deal done, and I do another one, I do another one, I do another one. In my first 12 months, I did 12 deals. And my second year, I did 10 more. And, this is in 2005. I did my very first deal. So 2006, 2007, I'm getting a little momentum. It's really difficult. The market was very competitive. I'm working full time, 60 hours a week at my job while I'm doing all this stuff. I don't work. I don't go out on the weekends. I don't do anything at night. I work on houses. I look for houses. Weekends, walking houses, making offers, and all that stuff. So, 2008 hits, and in November of 2008, that was my third year. So my first deal was November 10th, 2005. I did my very first deal. And November 7th, 2008, I left my job and went full-time into real estate, which to the average person that didn't go through the 2008 crash, that might not sound like that big of a deal. But if you lived it, people like me were being made fun of because nobody quit their job during 08. Everybody was losing their job. And so I had built a portfolio of 30 houses by November of 2008. I was still scared. Like, people asked me, like, what was it like? It was scary. But I had enough cash by that time, being in real estate 3 years, working at part-time. I built a portfolio of 30 houses. I had zero debt to my name. And before real estate, I had a lot of personal debt, a lot of credit card debt. And, and so I went full-time, and all of a sudden I hadn't experienced that yet. I didn't know what it felt like to have all my time to put into real estate. And now I don't have a lot of cash. In November of 2008, I had about $20,000 in cash, but I had about $5,000 a month in cash flow. I managed my own properties. I did my own maintenance. I maximized my money. And so, and I bought nothing for myself, literally no new clothes, no new car, I didn't go to Starbucks. I didn't eat out. Everything was down to the penny. I don't live like that now, but I don't need to live like that now. But back then I needed to live like that. And so within 4.5 years of November of 2008, my portfolio went from 30 houses to 450. And that's not doors, that's not syndication. That's not a lot of partnerships. I owned those properties. They were single families, duplexes, fourplexes. My biggest property was a 44 unit. And so, and now in 2013, so 4.5 years later, I had $1 million in cash in my bank account without borrowing, like no private money. It wasn't like fake money that you see a lot of guys do now. Yep. It was my cash. And I had 450 houses, and basically I did that in about 4.5 years. And, it's been like, I'm not saying there's not ups and downs. There's a lot of ups and downs along the way, but I accomplished more in a 4.5 year period than most people do in their career. Yep. And so that set me up for basically life,
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, 450 single family, duplex, triplex, whatever, small multi, that's management intense, man. That's a lot.
I needed
People
to take
don't know how hard that is.
Yeah. I needed to take a break after that. As far as like, I didn't add a lot of rental I still did hundreds and hundreds of, per year, hundreds and hundreds of deals. But I stopped adding as many rental properties because I needed to like really secure the portfolio. But I've always done a lot of deals, and I've had a lot of years in the 300 to 500 houses per year between wholesale and fix and flip, or wholesale fix and flip in my rental properties. Yeah, it's a lot of houses. My staff was big. At my biggest, my staff was 50 people in my office. And then I realized really where the shift came for me was in 2017. I did 32 million in top line sales, and I only put 1.8 million in my pocket. And for those people that are listening right now, some of people might be saying, man, you did really, really good. 1.8 million is what I paid taxes on. That's really good. And I'm like, that's terrible. Those margins are not good.
Bad margins.
That's a lot of risk. and a lot of money moving around to keep hardly any. And I made a decision after that year that I had to start making more margin. And my biggest expense was labor. All my employees were very highly paid with every benefit you could think of. Everybody had 401ks, everybody had tons of vacation time, everybody had a company vehicle, everybody had company Mac laptops, um, you know, all life insurance, health insurance, and you name it, I gave it to everybody. I mean, people drove nice vehicles that I bought on gas cards that I provided. And so I realized that I was just really bloated on the employee side. And I made a decision in 2018 that I was going to go virtual. I had 2 or 3 virtual assistants working for me, and they were kind of like my best employees. They were very reliable. They were very good, very sharp, did very good work, and I paid them next to nothing. And so I made a decision in 2018 that if anybody quit or got fired, I'm replacing them with a VA. And it took a couple years. It took a couple years to do that. Yeah. By 2020, as hindsight looks like I was a genius, because in 2020, the world shut down, but my operation kept going. So by 2020, I was fully virtual. And since 2020, I don't put that much time or effort into my wholesaling operation anymore. I put about 2.5 hours a month into that business. I don't decide what we buy. I don't decide how much we offer. I don't decide how much we sell it to or who we sell it to. I don't get into any of those details. My team does everything. And I know a lot of people talk like they're running a virtual operation, but my operation truly doesn't operate with me. I do 2.5 hours a month. That's half an hour a week meeting with my team. I do those on Mondays. I look at all my KPIs twice a day, 2:00 and 6:00. That's 3 or 4 minutes a piece. And then I look at my end of week reports. That's it. And I make my suggestions to the team on Mondays during those meetings, and we fine tune. But my team is really good. They've done thousands of deals without my effort, and so it's a pretty good operation. That's how I've been able to start. I have 9 total businesses, but that's how I've been able to do that, is because I'm not sitting inside of those businesses. I don't hire operations managers, and that's a big, ever since rocket fuel came out and the operation manager got really popular after that book came out. And I don't necessarily agree with that model. I don't use that model myself, and it's kind of shocking when I tell people that, because everybody's an operations manager now. You meet a 25-year-old kid, what do? I'm an operations manager. You can't be an operations manager. You haven't been.
You don't know how to operate.
Yeah, you don't know how to operate. And so I hire CEOs. So that's the difference, is when I start a business, I find a CEO to run that company. That's how I protect my time. That's how I never have to leave my lake house here. I got 4 dogs sitting on my couch right here. And this, for me, is the perfect lifestyle. I work between all my businesses. I fill my day up, but I don't have to. And, and I like the freedom of, if you want to call this work, it's work. I get up in the morning, I send some emails, and I do stuff all day, get on calls. If you want to call that work, sitting from my deck back there at the lake house, or sitting in here staring at the water, let's call it work, but it's pretty good lifestyle. And so that's what I'm more of a, I'm a lifestyle entrepreneur.
Sure.
Of course I want to make a lot of money, but I like the lifestyle.
So let's dive into a couple of things here. Number one, I know you have a VA business, but did that kind of just naturally spawn from you having these VAs in your business? You knew how to recruit them, you knew how to train them, you knew how to run that business with the VAs, and you're like, wait a minute, other people need VAs too. Why don't I help supply them as well? Is that kind of how that happened?
No, it's not how that works. So basically, I was using my own VAs. I was finding and training. Let's take a step back. I read a book, 4-Hour Workweek. It said hire VAs from this source. So I did, and they were terrible. Okay. They had bad English. I didn't know what the heck was going on. I had to train them, and it was just it was miserable. It wasn't what I thought. And I realized you have to find these VAs, you have to interview a whole bunch, and then you have to train them really well. And so once I discovered that and I started training them really well, it was amazing. It was awesome. And so what happened was I would just go online talking about my VAs and my system that I had built, and I don't have to slave over wholesaling or fix and flip anymore. And one day I got a call from somebody and he's like, Matt, can I just hire one of your VAs? And I was like, I don't know. I mean, go ask my team. So I went back to my team and like, hey, could we find and train VAs for somebody else? Oh yeah, I think we could do that. We tried it. We liked it. And we created a business out of it. And so now we place hundreds of VAs with other clients, and they're pretty technical. They're pretty high. I mean, we put a lot of time and effort into the training that we do for VA. So anytime somebody gets a VA from me, they've already been through several weeks of training from my end and before they're ever placed. So we're not the cheapest, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, but I think what you said from the start is you can hire a VA, but if you're not getting the performance out of them, you're just wasting money. I mean, if you hire somebody that barely speaks English, that isn't going to produce any return for you, then you're just wasting your money. You might as well not hire them at all. So if you're spending a little bit extra money, but there's a good return on that investment, then it makes total sense. You had said something too. You said, I don't hire operations people, I hire CEOs. Now, I know exactly what you're talking about, but there's some people who probably are in their business right now and haven't even thought about hiring a CEO or a COO or any of those, C-suite positions. Can you maybe explain why you'd hire a CEO versus an operations person like a COO and be the CEO yourself? Maybe talk about that a little bit.
Well, if you're the CEO yourself, you still have to solve problems. You have to be involved in the business. No different than say the coach on the sidelines of a football game. That coach, he's not out on the field running the plays, but he's involved in every play. And that's what a CEO does, a good CEO. They're involved in every play. And I don't want to be involved in every play. That's just not what I want to do at this stage in my career. And I'm too distracted with ideas that I want to do. So it's just easier if I hire a CEO to run that business and then let that CEO hire the people he needs to run, or she, because I have CEOs that are female and male. But they hire the people they need to run the business and build the business.
So you want to be in the owner's seat, basically, and let somebody else be in the management and operations seat.
Yeah. Makes and once sense. You figure out that formula, and it's tough to figure out, it's tough to execute on, but once you figure it out, I don't have fires I put out. I don't have emergency situations. Now, I'm not saying my companies don't have emergency situations and there's not fires in my companies. I just don't hear about them.
The crap doesn't flow up to you. Yeah.
No, if you hire an operations manager and you're the CEO, you're dealing with fires. If you hire a CEO, those fires never get to you. They're put out by the time they get to the CEO. And I don't want to put out a bunch of fires and be I hate that lifestyle. I know it causes me anxiety. I would rather focus my time and effort on driving revenue through building the right businesses and not have to build inside the business. I hated the anxiety of problems going wrong. And then I have to I got a problem here and I got a problem there and I got to juggle these problems. I just hated that. Now, here's the thing. It's who you hire that matters. If I hire, my CEOs don't make $100,000 a year. They don't make 150. They make 200 plus bonus. So you're paying for peace of mind. You're paying for revenue to grow. And some people watching is like, geez, Matt, I don't even make $200,000 a year myself. I would never be able to do that. And that's true. And that was me at one time. But, I'm just trying to help people understand that where are you going in 10 years? What is your 5-year and 10-year plan? Because if you don't have that plan and you don't execute on that plan and have an idea where you want to go, you will be grinding in 10 years. You will be grinding in 20 years. You ever met the real estate investor that's been investing for 25, 30 years? He's still doing the same jobs 30 years later.
Yeah. And back up, you said, fires start and you got to put them out. We actually use the term in our business, firefighting. It's like, we are not going to get into that firefighting mode, because once you get into that, it's brutal. It's really hard to get out of. And especially if you started fires long ago and now they're all coming to fruition and you're putting out fires that you started a long time ago. It's not a good life. Put it that
Yeah,
way.
no, it's not a fun way to run a business. And most of us got into our business, and a lot of probably what people watching are real estate investors. A lot of us got into real estate investing because we heard about this term called passive income. And you can build a rental portfolio and it's not passive at all. It's a nightmare. And so I look for business. I look to, when I build a business, I put somebody in charge of that business that's really good at that thing, and that can make decisions and hire good people, where they can operate it, and Matt doesn't have to get involved.
Let's talk about that. How do you find the person that can handle the kind of pressure that a CEO needs to be able to handle? Like,
Mhm.
how are you number one finding them, but how are you weeding out the ones that just aren't fit? Because there's a lot of people that talk a good game.
Yeah, I mean, you want to basically hire CEOs. You're hiring somebody that was already a CEO. The perfect candidate is somebody that had a business and financially wore out. They just didn't have enough revenue. Maybe they're in the wrong business with tight margins. There's a lot of businesses out there that are run by talented people, but the business is doomed. I like going after the manufacturing type people. I was a machine shop worker, so I understand that business and how good you have to be to make money in manufacturing. I mean, you're competing against China in the manufacturing world. And you find somebody that has any sort of success in manufacturing, but just worn out from the 8% margin and 3% margin. And many manufacturing companies, that's all they're making.
Yeah.
They get worn out. They're like, man, I'm chasing this thing. I'm making $150,000 a year. Hopefully, if nothing bad happens, and there's no end in sight where I can make more, and I'm working 80 hours a week. You bring that talented person into your company, you're paying them 200 plus bonus, and they can work less hours, and make more money and have a better lifestyle, and they're really good. Well,
They're
yeah,
used
again,
to pinching pennies in that business, right? I mean, it's
right.
like you have to be very efficient with your employees' time. You have to be very efficient with materials. You've got it timing.
Mhm.
Everything's got to be right to make that money. So you've got to be operationally strong to pull that off.
Yeah, you're operating in margins of 5%, 8%. You know how to cut every corner possible and pinch pennies. So, and not only that, but manufacturing is a challenging. It's a challenge. It's every day you're getting up and you're competing against the Chinese. And it used to be
Yeah, especially in
it
the
used to be
US. Yeah.
Mexico. You were used to fight Mexico, and Mexico lost a lot of their jobs to China.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's a challenging business. So you look for people that are talented. Again, like, one of the CEOs that runs my company has no real estate experience, but he's just really sharp, understands business,
Yeah.
and understands running people, and leading people. So that's kind of like my model. I mean, if you hire operations managers, you're still in the mix every day.
Yeah.
If you hire CEOs, you're out. You just don't have problems. You don't have the daily stress.
To the person who you had mentioned before that says, how do I afford a person at that level? And you even mentioned, you said, I was there at one time too. What do you say to them? Like, how do they get to the position where they can hire that person to run their business
Yeah.
that can take over that role?
They first have to generate enough revenue. So you hire somebody for 200 grand and your company makes 250, you're going to cut right at the top, but you've got to, you've got to be making enough revenue to hire that person. So, but here's the thing is an individual with one or two employees, of an executive assistant or two, that those people can make 500 grand a year in wholesaling real estate. I mean,
Yeah.
I did it. My first year that I cleared $1 million on paying taxes on $1 million was 2013, and I did it with one employee and me.
Yep.
So it's very possible to do if you can hire that first person, which is an executive assistant, to take all the minimum wage tasks off your plate. Now you can get away from the minimum wage tasks. You can focus on the bigger tasks. You can drive revenue and run that revenue up to $500,000, $1 million. And now you can start looking around at hiring more people, which will free up more of your time to maybe go think about how to expand the business further or start a vertically integrated business with that business.
You know, you mentioned the executive assistant. That's a position that it took me years and years and years to hire because I had a hard time mentally justifying somebody checking my email and doing my scheduling and doing a lot of those little tasks. But it was a complete game changer. Just,
Oh,
I mean, I had full staff, full team, good sized company, and didn't have an executive assistant. I hired her. Man, I can't tell you how much that's helped to free up my life in general. And she's great. She set this up with you, right? I mean, it really changes the game. And I think what entrepreneurs do is they're constantly looking at top line numbers. They're going, okay, I can hire more salespeople. I can hire more people that can help with revenue. And so they don't want to put the money into the person that's going to do those little tasks. But what they don't realize is it's actually taking away the most expensive time in the company, which is yours as the owner of that business. And so spending 5 minutes on email, spending 10 minutes going back and forth with somebody trying to coordinate something in your calendar is extremely valuable time. And you should only be doing things that add the most value to your company and are your unique abilities, right? And I think that was a massive learn for me.
So people think, they think that their time gets wasted in the course of a week from big, like, well, I did this and it took 2 hours out of my day, or I did this and it took 3 hours out of my day. I'll just tell you, the reason you're working 40, 50, 60, 80 hours a week is not from the 2-hour task and the 3-hour task. It's death by 1,000 cuts. Yes. It's 5 minutes here and 10 minutes there. That's why people have to work so many hours, is they're just getting distracted with these little things that hit them all day long, every day. And if you can have somebody else do those things for you, in 2013, when I made my first $1 million, I didn't work past 2:00 in the afternoon at all that year. I didn't have to. I was done by 2 and out the door. And so, most people fill their time with minimum wage activities. And one hire fixes that.
Yeah. I mean, if your time is worth hundreds or thousands of dollars per hour based on your brain power and your understanding of the business and what you can do to really add value to that company, checking your email and doing little things like that, it's such a waste. And actually the attention that it takes you, it takes away your attention from those important things to where you're not really good at anything. People don't realize it, but they're super distracted all day. I was one of them. Could not stay focused because constantly getting a ping on my phone, constantly getting an email. I got to email back and forth with Matt 4 times to figure out a time that works to do an interview. Like those kind of things just ruin you as an owner of a business.
Yep.
I totally agree.
Just those little simple tasks, it just clears your mind and your time.
What's the biggest challenge you see with having mostly virtual, overseas staff running your businesses? Like, obviously you're not in it, but your CEOs are running them. So where do you think the biggest challenges are in that?
You're going to always have the challenges with power outages. So you've got, they get storms, third world countries, they don't have the technology we have with, being able to weather a storm. The other thing is their healthcare is not as good, so they're sick more often. I mean, they don't live like we do. So if a common cold can knock them out, where we might come to work with a common cold and be fine. So you're going to have a few more missed work days from power outages and sickness here and there. Outside of that, uh, there's not a lot of disadvantage. You get to, if you're a virtual company, you're pulling your talent from a worldwide talent pool. If you're local, you're like, hey, I'm in Cleveland, Ohio, and I'm building my company here. Then you're only pulling talent from Cleveland, Ohio.
Yeah.
What's the chances that the right person is living within 10, 15 miles of you? Probably not that good. And
Right.
so you've got a lot of challenges like that. I personally think COVID-19 was it was a once in a lifetime thing at the time. I think it'll repeat now.
Yeah.
So I don't think I wouldn't be surprised if we see something next year with something like that. So
Yeah.
we'll have to see how that plays out. But I like I like virtual businesses. I don't like office setting. I'm not the
Sure.
office setting type guy. So and it works. And if you monitor, you have to do more monitoring. You have to keep an eye on people, and that's no harder to do online than it would be in your office.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that. We used to have an office till September of 2021. We sold our office well after COVID and just said, and it's not because of COVID. It was because of exactly what you just said. We were hiring people for an industry, manufactured housing, and there's nobody in Naples, Florida from that industry. And they couldn't afford to live in Naples, Florida. So we would have to, we were trying to recruit people from all over the country, and they're going, yeah, I can't find a place to live there. And so it was just a major recruiting problem. And as soon as we went completely remote with our businesses, we're like, wow, we can recruit really good talent from these other large companies because we're a more entrepreneurial company and there were things that were attractive to them and they could stay where they lived and work
hmm
remotely. So I totally agree with you. It really opens up your talent pool a lot, to
Yeah.
be able to get people that have more talent and skills in your specific niche industry that you're working. Is
hmm
is from a training standpoint and working with VAs, you know, how hard is that? Because you're basically having to train someone who maybe doesn't know how title works in the United States, or how a real estate transaction works in the United States because they're in the Philippines or they're in, any of these other countries. How do you get them to understand some American cultural and business cultural things that we as Americans would just naturally understand because we bought our own house or something like that?
Well, I mean, you build processes and systems and you document them. You know, when you have a bunch of Americans in an office building, you get really slacked on building processes and systems because you can just walk over, hey, tell me how to do this thing real quick.
Yeah.
And that's just a terrible situation in and of itself for productivity. But when you can just build the process, and you have to build processes and systems that are documented for virtual assistants that live 8,500 miles away, I mean, it just forces you to get really systemized.
So
And
it's
so what we
documenting
have,
it.
yeah, we have all my 9 companies, every single company, we have every process in that company documented. So if we lose somebody and they quit or get fired, we just step the next person right into that training.
And are you
So,
are you niching them down to like very specific tasks where
mhm,
when you hire somebody, they're not doing a bunch of different things, they're doing the
right.
same thing over and over and over?
Yeah. So like when Henry Ford when he really built the assembly line, one guy, put the left tire on the car every day. One guy put the left tire, and he could put that left tire on better than anybody on the planet. We do the same thing. It's just real estate is just an assembly line. It's just here's
Yes.
where it starts, here's where it ends. All the people in between, they do a specific thing really well, and we just teach them how to do that thing, and they get really good at it.
Have you done with any commercial real estate transactions? Has it mostly been residential, or just curious?
No, I've done commercial too. I don't focus on commercial, or I haven't in the past, but
Mhm.
I might get more into it in the next. There's a big opportunity looming in the future with commercial, and I took advantage of it last time too. I bought a lot of commercial during 2012, 13, 14. I mean,
Mhm.
I think it was 2013. I bought $20 million worth of commercial real estate in one year, plus $20 million worth of residential in the same year. So I've done a lot of commercial deals. I've wholesaled commercial
With
buildings.
VAs? I was more asking about the
No,
VA side.
that was really before VAs that
Okay.
I was doing a lot of that. I have flipped and wholesaled apartment buildings with VAs,
Okay.
for
Yeah.
sure. And 12 unit, 24 units, all that stuff.
You have a property management business, and that's run with VAs as well?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Every position in the company is run by a VA, including maintenance director.
Really?
And yeah, and the only people that are in any of my companies that are not VAs are people that require boots on the ground.
Yeah. So basically your maintenance director is working with somebody on the ground who's running around and actually either doing the work or is taking the pictures and sending it
Yep.
back. And
Yep.
interesting.
So some tenant turns in a work order. That VA takes that work order, troubleshoots through text or over the phone to try to troubleshoot the problem without sending a text. You'd be surprised what these tenants send you. Light won't turn on. Well, have you checked the light bulb?
Yeah.
Furnace won't work. Well, have you changed the furnace filter? Why is my smoke detector beeping? So all of those little things, we built a FAQ, so that so this is how we trained. Like the most complicated position on the planet to teach a virtual assistant is a maintenance director position. And these people don't live in houses. They don't have hot water heaters like we have. They
Yeah.
don't understand what a central air unit is.
They just don't
So
know.
they
Yeah.
don't know what it is.
Yeah.
So we had to build a bulletproof system. And what we did was we built an FAQ. So, hey, if you get this call with this question, here's what your next response is. And that's how we did it. It took about 6 months to build, but we built this master FAQ. And I'll put my maintenance director from the Philippines against anybody and I've hired and paid, 60, 70, $80,000 for maintenance directors. And my virtual assistant that's making $10 an hour is better by far.
Yeah. That's impressive. Property management is it's a lot of just turning the wheels and doing the same repetitive things over and over, but there's a lot of things that are connected to each other that one person's got to, when does it get passed on to the next person, from like repair maintenance to CapEx and different things like that. And so I can see that as kind of a conveyor belt or, a working line where you could systemize a lot of that. So that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. What's the hardest business that you have to kind of systemize and bring in VAs? Looking back,
I would say, well, property management is probably the toughest one. That's a tough business in general.
it is.
Your work, a property manager doesn't, their customer is really the owner of the property, but it feels like the tenant is who your customer is, and it's not. The tenant is living there. Your customer is the owner, and so you got this battle because the owner. Your job is to make the owner as much money as possible. Many times, in order to do that, the tenant gets bad news, like, "Hey, I just my toilet isn't flushing right." Okay, well, what did little Johnny throw down the toilet? Well, it was a toy. Well, then you get that toy out of there. The plumber pulls the toy out. Hey, here's why this toilet was plugged up. And then you have to tell the tenant, "Hey, you owe me $350."
Yeah.
And they're mad
But you still
because
want them to be happy at the same time,
right.
which is a hard
They're mad because they
relationship.
don't want to pay the $350, but their kid threw the toy down and flushed the toy down the toilet. It's a really tough business. Every time they break something, it's their fault. Like if a furnace goes out, that's not necessarily their fault. Or if, something happens with, plumbing or something like that. But if a window breaks, if a handrail breaks, if they put, too many clothes on a closet rod, or somebody hung on the closet rod and did pull-ups on a closet rod, they have to fix that. And so it's a tough business because they think you're a bad person because you're making them, the rich real estate property manager is making them fix a $150 item that they don't have the money for, or don't want to spend it on.
And hey, guys, if you want to learn how to manage mobile home parks, buy, fund, and operate mobile home parks, go to getrealcashflow.com. Got an entire education company, coaching company to help you do that successfully. A lot of what Matt's talking about right here are the things that you can learn how to do very, very effectively. and build massive wealth doing it. So getrealcashflow.com. So Matt, if you're starting out and you're building that business, let's say even for you right now, if you wanted to add a 10th business, okay,
Mhm.
would Matt jump in, start the business, get it going, and then hire a CEO, or would you go out and find a CEO to start the business?
Matt would operate certain functions in the business. I'm pretty, one, I have money now, but I can hire the positions out and I can afford it, even if the business does zero revenue, because I have all these other businesses that are bringing in a lot of money. So it's kind of a loaded question because I could just hire everybody, but
Of
I
course.
don't. I typically put the minimum wage type people in the business where they need to be. And I typically like the sales side. So I will do sales type stuff, hire somebody to do, like an assistant type to, build the processes, build the systems and operate some of that stuff. And then once I get a handle on the business and understand how to, I call it turning a business into a perpetual motion machine. Once I understand how to turn a business into a perpetual motion machine, that's when I step out. And
Makes
we,
sense. So you can kind of systemize it, figure out how to generate the revenue, what the real pitch is to the customer, make sure it's a viable business, get some of the support staff in place, fulfillment in place. And then once it's kind of going, you bring in somebody who really knows how to run a business
yeah.
every day and wants to run that business every day.
Yeah. So I like to be in and out of a business in about 3 months. That's kind of
It's
my
pretty
goal. It doesn't
fast.
always work out. I mean, I might be involved in 3, 4, 5 months, but my goal is, 3 months to be, get it started, figure out the details, figure out where the problems are, tweak the system, find the bottlenecks, fix those, make sure sales operates good, and then I exit.
And you're a successful dude. Obviously, you're running a lot of businesses, done very, very well. But tell me about a business that failed and why.
I was gonna. I started a car sales business.
Mhm.
I don't know, probably 12, 13 years ago. I knew some people that were really successful selling cars, and I started buying cars. And I bought a car lot and had a car salesman, and that's not vertically aligned with real estate. And I just didn't do good. I wasn't super passionate about it. I didn't know how to hire as well back then, and I eventually had all these cars on this lot. And one day I was just like, this is not what I want to do. And I gave away every car for free. I found people like, hey, here's a Mustang. You can have that. Here's this. Here, you can have that. And I gave away all the cars. Took a loss on them all. I had the money to do that. But that's how quickly I got in and out. I probably ran that business for maybe a year. And I just realized I didn't want to do it.
Man, you were Chris Kringle to a lot of people that year, giving
It
cars away.
was. It
Yeah,
was. I gave
yeah.
a lot of nice vehicles away.
And the reason that you said something in all that, you said it wasn't in the vertical of real estate. Talk about that because I think people, especially this day and age, get shiny object syndrome. It's this business this month. It's this business this year. Like
Mhm.
everybody's doing something cool. And with social media, it just kind of like makes everything look really sexy. So people are all over the place. Can you maybe
Mhm.
talk about why it didn't work not being in real estate? Just go deeper on that.
I just know real estate really well. I know when you if you flip houses, for example, you learn how to find them. You learn marketing. You learn the exit side. You learn construction. There's just so many things that you can learn you know, that works in other businesses. Like my dumpster business, for example. I was spending like, 20, 30,000, $40,000 a month on dumpsters. And I did the math one day, got one of my team members and like, I'm spending more on, I could pay off, I'm paying off these other guys' dumpsters I'm buying. I'm like, why don't we just figure out the math and do it ourselves? And then when we're not using them, we can rent them to other people. And that's what we did, and I still have that business. It's been going 6 years now. But that's just an easy thing because we were already renting those and we understood the trash out piece and all of that. So that was just an easy business to start.
Yeah, you're kind of sticking within your expertise and just branching off from that. You're not saying I'm going to today be real estate extraordinaire and then jumping into high-end car sales. That's a very
Mhm.
different business altogether, and none of the customers are the same. None of the none of
Right.
the you know it's a very different world. It's a different kind of
Mhm.
financing, and it's just everything is very different about it. And so it's much easier to get hurt jumping into new things than just subtly branching off from what you already know very, very well.
Mhm.
I've
For sure.
I've had I've had a couple of flops myself, and they were always doing something that I just had no business doing. It
Yeah.
was a business that wasn't closely aligned to what I knew well, and you know, I flopped because of it. And
Yeah.
could have probably made it work, but it was just not worth it, right? It's like you're
Mhm.
going to go down the road for how long before you really make this random business succeed? Is
Mhm.
is the house flipping business with the rehab side of it, if you're still doing that, is
Mhm.
that's also managed with VAs?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so if you think about the start of that business, it still comes from the, you know, marketing side. So it starts
Mhm.
with how to get the lead and then take that lead, and it has to go from the lead to turn into a contract. And then from contract, you got to run through transaction coordination, through closing. All of that is done with VAs. Now, once you close it, you need boots on the ground people to
The
do the work
construction
and
piece.
manage
Yeah.
the project. Yeah. But I mean, I haven't been to a house that I've fixed and flipped in, I don't know, 6 or 7 years, maybe.
Yeah.
Oh, it's been a long time, and we still do them every month.
So you have someone that's actually managing those local contractors that are doing the work and all of
Mhm.
that, but it's all done remotely. Okay.
Right.
Um,
Mhm.
got it. So I guess from here, the person who's sitting there going, okay, I've got a business. How do I transition my business into a more remote, potentially virtual assistant run business? What would you recommend somebody who would be considering that they do to start, or
Well, I
how would
mean,
they look
first
at it?
first first thing you do is you have to get out a piece of paper and write down everything that you do in the course of your day. That I like to just put it all on paper. Like, here's everything I'm doing today, and every little detail. I don't care if it's something that takes you a minute to do or 2 hours. You write all that stuff down, and you start thinking, okay, what of those things I don't like to do, or I'm not good at? You take those things and you find a virtual assistant that can, if those are virtual items, you take a virtual assistant to do those things, and you have to start one at a time, build a system and process, which could be as simple as turning on your screen record and recording a video on how you do that thing.
Sure.
And so you just take one item at a time, and you start building out the systems, and you hire somebody that can take over that thing, those things. That's how you start with it, and then that kind of grows from there. That'll grow from, like, you know, uh, what can I do next? What can I have now? Like, for me, um, if I ever catch myself in the day doing something I don't like to do, I immediately stop in my tracks. I'm like, okay, I have an appointment. I'm getting ready to do this thing. I don't want to do this thing. This will be the last time I do this thing. I got to find somebody else that can do it. What do I have to put in place to go hand this thing off?
What about the person who has a business already, maybe an in-office business is kind of where I was going with that is you've got a
Mhm.
staff, you've got people, and
Mhm.
you just realize that you could probably be more cost effective or more efficient even going with the virtual staff. How would you
Mhm.
look at that and start to make that transition? Because it sounds like that's what you did, right?
Yeah, you make a decision one day, and anybody that quits or gets fired gets replaced with a virtual assistant. That's how I did it. I let it happen naturally. When people quit or got fired, I lined up a VA to do their job. But you still comes down to building a process and putting a VA in place to do those things.
Yeah.
You
Yeah. So it's
any single job that doesn't require boots on the ground can be done by a VA. All of them.
yeah. Yep. Is everybody that's working virtually for the most part out of the country, are they mostly being told exactly what to do, or do you have some people that are in a decision-making capacity?
Nobody gets into decision-making capacity.
You see what I mean?
Unless
Like,
it's under certain constraints where there's a decision that we know has to be made in each process. I don't know if that makes sense clear, but there's this word out there. It's called discretion.
mhm,
And discretion means people decide to do what they need to do or they want to do. We eliminate discretion. Discretion is the enemy of duplication. So we build the system where, okay, when you get to this fork in the road, you're going to get asked this question. Here's how you answer it. You can go this way or this way. So that's where we put their decision-making ability within the constraints of how we do the thing.
got it.
The minute that you don't do that and people just decide to do what they feel is right, your business will fumble.
Yes. Yeah, and that's easy to happen in a property management business where there's just unique scenarios every day where it's
Yeah,
not the same thing. It's like things blow up, things start on
yeah.
fire, people die, like it's real. And so some of that is very unpredictable. So it sounds like you've been able to kind of map it out to where it's a fork in the road. These are your options based on what you're hearing. Then you make a decision and you do the next step in the process.
Yeah, I mean, well, I was gonna deny this person, this tenant, because their credit score was too low. But I looked at their income, and their income was really high. We only need 3.5x, and they were at 4.5x. So I decided to go ahead and let them rent. And then all of a sudden, the house is destroyed. They stopped paying rent, even though they make a lot of money. Like you can't allow discretion. It just will ruin your business.
Yep. Yep, that makes sense. And so are you teaching people how to actually hire VAs, or are you just offering the VAs, the actual VAs themselves, or
Yeah,
what
we
do you
teach
do
them
in
how to
that
do it.
VA world? Okay.
Yeah, we teach them how to do it too. So I
Okay.
have my full blown real estate education business, and we teach how to do pretty much all of it. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, I think what makes you really unique, Matt, is that you've figured out not only how to flip houses, like everybody can flip houses. Like it's not genius business, right? A lot
Mhm.
of people can do that. A lot of people can wholesale. A lot of people can do it even at relatively high volume. But I think the difference is being able to do it in a very systematic way with people from outside of our country and do it effectively to where you can be out of the business. Actually, a good friend and a guy that I had on the show recently, Andre Sekurik, he flips hundreds of homes a year, very high volume, multiple states, great business, right?
Mhm.
Um, and it's still a very where I was going with that is he was talking about the business itself of flipping or wholesaling homes. It's not a very marketable business to sell, right?
Mhm.
Because it's a very it's a trading business. You're buying a widget and you're selling a widget, right? And so
Mhm.
until you can really create a system around that, there's not many buyers for that business. It's just an income stream, right? But
Mhm.
once you can systemize it, and that's what he was talking about, is creating a system, having a very predictable income stream, and not having to be in the business every day, that changes the game. Now you've got a marketable business that could potentially be sold. And
Mhm.
what you're talking about is, a pretty systemized business in a world that's usually kind of just a mom and pop making
Yeah.
money type business.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, if you can figure out if the owner of the company isn't the magic of the business, you can sell it. You know, it's a sellable asset. The thing is though, I ruined it for a lot of people because I created VAs for every position. So now somebody's like, well, I was going to buy a wholesaling business, Matt, but then I just realized that I can just hire your VAs and plug them in. And now I just created a system to flip houses with your VAs and save myself the purchase price, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So it kind of takes you out of the
I've
marketability because
actually
they
had
can
that
just replace you.
conversation. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, where people are like, well, I was going to buy a business, but then I found you and you have acquisitions VAs, dispo VAs, marketing VAs, and transaction coordinators with lead managers and all that stuff. So like my full VA teams that we offer, even like the lead manager, they're the ones that run the comps and come up with the max offer price. That's handed off to the acquisitions VA. Acquisitions VA then negotiates the deal. Once it's under contract, it hands off to Dispo. They find a buyer. You know what I mean? Like, it's just one of those things where it's already there, so
The,
you can get into it cheaper.
the reason I wanted you on here is because I want business owners to kind of have that aha moment where it's like, huh, what am I doing now? What should I be doing? And is there a way to either hybrid it or make a serious transition? Because I would say most people hearing this for the first time probably, I don't want to say that they're not believing it, but it's a stretch. Like, it's a very hard stretch to think that I could go from having an entire staff to having an entire virtual staff, hiring a CEO, and being completely out of the business, because most business owners are so tied into it. Like, as we're
Mm-hmm.
talking here, I'm going to be completely honest. Okay. As we're talking here, I'm thinking about, okay, so how would someone in the Philippines handle this role in my business?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm even having that thought process, and this isn't the first time
Yeah.
I've heard this. So,
Mm-hmm.
I think what it all comes down to is extreme systemization, documenting it, putting key people in place to run those businesses, and then treating it like a machine, making sure
Mm-hmm.
it's a viable business to start, of course. But I think
Yeah.
if you can run the business with onshore people, there's no reason it couldn't be run offshore.
Yeah.
And that's
No, I mean, we
powerful.
do it every day. We got a lot of clients doing it. So, yeah, I mean, it is hard to believe because most people haven't seen it for themselves. And if they haven't seen it, it's tough to understand, you know.
Yeah.
The last position that we really figured out was the acquisition side. And once we created it was a known fact that virtual assistants can do anything robotic or repetitive, but they can't do sales. And when I cracked the code in 2020 for acquisitions VAs, I mean, my virtual assistant business went to $1 million in 90 days because nobody else. I had a monopoly because
Yeah.
nobody else had that product. And all
Yeah,
of a
that's a
sudden,
hard position to
yeah,
imagine doing virtually, especially when you're buying real estate. Again, culturally,
mhm,
they don't understand some of how
mhm,
we do things, and so that's impressive because you're
mhm,
actually, it's acquisitions is a complex sales strat. It's
yeah,
complex sales, right?
it is. It's
You're
very
not selling a
complex.
widget.
No, no, and my originally goal when I built my acquisitions VAs was I went to the two top, I don't want to name any names, but I went to the two top sales trainers in the real estate industry. Everybody knows who those two people are. And I said, hey, here's my idea, but I don't have the sales training built for this. And I wanted them to give me a price to train my acquisitions VAs, and their prices were too high. It would have made it unaffordable for these VAs. So I sat down and, I mean, I closed a couple thousand deals myself back in the day over the phone and in person. And I built the whole sales training. And what I found was, I think I built a shortcut. I figured out things that a lot of people hadn't figured out. And that was part of my secret sauce. I was training these VAs in a different way than most people train, because I had to take a virtual assistant with no sales training at all. In 3-4 weeks, they have to be ready to close. That's
Yeah,
a very difficult thing.
that is.
And so,
Acquisitions is not selling widgets. It's not. I mean, I'm repeating myself
right.
here, but I can't underscore that enough. Like, that's
Mm.
not an easy thing.
Yeah. And there's a lot of 7-figure wholesalers in the United States that have my acquisitions VAs, including myself. I mean, I have 3 of my own as well. But
Interesting.
yeah, you know what ruined it was my very first acquisitions VA that I hired. Um, he did 22 contracts in his first 30 days. And I was thinking, man, I'm the luckiest guy ever. I am the luckiest guy ever. The only person in the Philippines that can do sales, I hired. And then we repeated it again and again and again. And it's funny though, now that VA, who I close a lot of deals with that VA, but he now works for one of the top sales trainers, one of the 2 that I just mentioned. He works for that person. But that's the
Jeez,
level of training. That's the level of training we gave. And
that's awesome.
yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool. I think that my top client with my acquisitions VAs does about 2 million a year in in wholesale fees.
That's solid.
Mhm.
Yeah, when you're making 10, 20, 30K a pop, that's a lot of deals.
Mhm.
That's great. So Matt, who should get a hold of you and how can they get a hold of you?
The best way to get a hold of me, I'm on all the social platforms, but just so you guys so I'm totally transparent. I'm on TikTok, I'm on Instagram, I'm on all of them, but I never go on those platforms at all. If you communicate with me in a DM, you're communicating with a VA. However, Facebook, I am. That's my one thing. I get up every morning, I write a post. If you send a DM, if it's not me, my team will tell you, hey, this is Sean for Matt, but if that's the easiest way to get a hold of me. And you can find my social media profile, Facebook. Again, guys, go to Facebook if you're going to do it. You can go to realestatematt.com. That's my website. And you'll see my Facebook profile on the first page. You can just click that and, DM me or whatever.
He's got very good quality content, by the way. I mean, being a student of content, I pay close attention to what people are putting out, and his stuff is high quality. So definitely follow him, even if you don't need to contact him. But hey, who would contact you? I wanted to clarify that. Like, who should be reaching out to you?
I'm known in the industry as the real estate guy, single family home guy, but honestly, I'm just a business guy. So there's a lot of people that reach out to me. Hey, Matt, I got this windmill farm, and I'm having this issue. What would you suggest that I do? And I'm like, let's get on a call. Let's talk through it. I can usually fix the issue. So, you just never know what I'm going to get hit with, but I almost always leave every call with somebody's like, man, that just saved me a ton,
So real estate, VAs, general consultant of all business types. I like it.
Yeah. I mean,
right.
Once you understand the formula, you can pretty much talk through most businesses. You might not know the ins and outs and the details of some of these, but you can kind of fix where is the problem? Is it leads? Is it revenue? Is it sales? Where's the issue at?
Love it. Thanks again, Matt, for being on, man. This has been awesome. I know I've learned a ton. I know the listeners are going to learn a ton too. So really appreciate you doing this today.
Loved being here. Glad to help.
All right, guys. See you on the next one. Thanks for listening. I hope you got out of this as much as I did. I'd really appreciate it if you could leave a 5-star review so we can reach more people. Jump over to mariodattilo.net and find out what else I got going on. Be sure to connect with me on all the socials, and I'll see you on next week's show.